Good morning, everyone. Yes, I know I am not being seen right now for some strange reason. I will try to fix that as we go. But you can see the lovely Cheshire who got all dolled up for this. Check it out, man. It's like a special occasion or something. Is it a holiday?
I just like to match the theme.
You do. You do it very well. Let me fix why I can't be shown. I don't know what's going on. I will look into this.
Nobody ever knows what's going on.
I don't get it. Everything changes. Like every time there's an update, like at a Skype update, something changes. Like I even told you there's a Skype update, and it. Well, I don't know what the hell happened there. I didn't do that. Did you turn off your Skype?
Everything is broken.
You broke everything.
Everything's busted. We never start properly.
Skype, right?
No.
Oh, you can't. Oh, maybe that's why. Well, why not?
Because you didn't turn your camera on?
No, it's on. Well, they don't need to see me. They only need to see you. I just use you for the eye candy anyways. That's already been established. I have a way of fixing this while you explain to people what we're going to be doing today.
Steve, did you open your...
I didn't do
stream stuff before you open Skype, so your stream stuff is trying to use your camera?
No, because it was working there for a second. I opened Skype first. No, I opened my OBS first. I always open that first. But my Skype's been like crashing. Like right now, I can't even click on anything on it. Oh well, you don't need to see me. I can manually add me in.
Just get a picture of yourself and put it in there.
That's all it needs, you know.
Just take a picture.
But I got all prettied up for nothing then.
Well,
you can't be the only pretty one.
I'm just trying to give you solutions to your problems, man. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
I can fix it.
It sounds like you don't really want your problem solved and you just want to complain.
That's it. I'm a complainer. No, I can fix it. The problem is you're not going to be able to see me, so oh well. But outside can. I can fix it. But anyways.
The outside can't see you.
Well, they
I'm
can't
looking at it right now.
Well, I'm not done yet. Give me a second.
We have a dynamic. Impatient. We live in a society.
There, now they can see me. Okay.
Is that the John Croon, Dr. John in the chat?
It could be. It could be. I don't know. Ask him how he's feeling. And if he says he's feeling well, it's not John. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, well, you spoiled it. Now they're gonna know.
Oh, he asked John. He's got a thing for you. So yeah, that's John. That's definitely John.
He does.
He does. He got a little man crush on you.
Oh.
Yes. Sorry, John. Gotta give that away. He doesn't hide it. Cheshire's cute. And by the way, unlike other call-in shows, we appreciate people talking about our looks, good, bad, or indifferent. I don't care. Say anything you want.
Yeah, for anybody who's new, all questions must be phrased in the form of a compliment.
Absolutely. Yeah, we thrive on that stuff. So yeah, it is kind of funny. Some other call-in shows are like, please don't say anything about the looks of the host, like what they're wearing or anything. I'm like, go for it. I'm like just the opposite. I'm like, hey, knock yourself out, man.
Okay, now we can see you on the outside.
Yeah.
All right. I've got this Twitter thread pulled up that you were part of yesterday. Do you want to talk about that first before we do calls?
You want to dive into that one first? Yeah,
I mean, we may as well. I think it's a good place to start because then we can kind of segue from that into your discussion about Aaron.
Okay. Works for me.
Cool. So this person goes by unapologetics or at apologetics_un on Twitter. Un. And Steve shockingly got into a Twitter discussion, argument, whatever, about philosophy on Twitter.
That never happens on Twitter.
Shocking.
What?
Shocking.
That's crazy talk.
And so this person had responded. So essentially, Steve had said, Logic 101 crash course is done. I'm going to bed. And so they responded with, I guess, what they think explains what their position was the whole time. And so I'm just going to read them real quick. I'll read 1, 2, 3, and maybe Steve can kind of touch on them a little bit because we offered for the guy to call in, or girl, we don't know. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know. I'm not going to judge. But here's what they said. Look, I won't claim to be an expert on epistemology, but here's my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong on any. 1, inductive arguments are never 100%. They deal in probabilities less than 100. 2, you've equated the inductive argument validity to truth. In my limited studies, I've never seen that. Rather, in what I've always seen, inductive arguments are validated for validity, but for deductive arguments, valid equals 100% equals true. And by the way, I have no interest in inductive arguments for God because there is no valid way to even estimate most relevant probabilities, though apologists will sometimes try to do so, such as their fine-tuning arguments. So do you want to just give us a brief on what an inductive argument is, and then kind of step by step us 1, 2, 3?
No, I'm just kidding.
And Inkboy said, Steve, you looked better before the cam.
I appreciate that. Absolutely. Okay, so what an inductive argument
Hey,
is...
Mikey.
No, there's a couple of forms of argumentation. There's inductive, deductive, and abductive. And an inductive argument tries to give us more information than we have originally. Deductive arguments don't. It kind of just moves around what we have and comes with a conclusion based upon premises we do know. So an inductive argument to be strong means that all premises must be true. If it's cogent, it means that it's greater than 50% likely, but less than 100% likely. Because if it's 100% likely, it is no longer inductive, it is deductive. So an inductive argument, by definition, and this is one of the times where you can say by definition, cannot be valid. Right? Validity meaning 100%. So an inductive argument cannot be 100%. It just has to be greater than 50.
I'm going to have such a hard time with this because I can't actually see Steve. So I don't get any of the visual cues. I'm seeing what they are. And so I'm getting no visual cues. And I'm also like, my brain is going to be wandering as I just stare around at nothing.
I don't know why it's not. I can't even click anything on Skype. I had this problem before too. It nothing works on it, even though I updated it. I'm clicking on it and nothing happens. And I'm trying to show you through the meet, or me through the meets, and I can't even do that. So
yeah,
I'm working on the meets. Maybe I can change that somehow. One sec.
Yeah, whatever. It's gonna get all messed up as soon as people call anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, but you'll be able to see me. There we go.
Okay, so
you'll be able to see me through meets. Hi. It might be a little off.
Hi. Oh, that is better.
Is it better? Can you see me?
Yeah, it's pixely right now, but
how many figures I got up?
I don't know yet.
You can't see it.
Yeah, you're all pixeled and you're not moving.
I don't know why.
God damn it, Steve. I miss Boole.
I miss Boole so much. All right, well, it's best I can do right now, so.
Okay, well, whatever.
You can read what Dr. Kroon said, who has a PhD in astrophysics that knows logic and reason.
Listen, you can't say that to Steve. You're gonna inflate his head.
Stroke it, man. Stroke it. The ego.
What Steve is. Do you want me to say it like
yes,
nicely?
I want you to stroke it.
Stroke the ego. What Steve is saying is accurate, as usual.
Shocker, right? Yeah.
So you're saying that they were correct on the first point?
Yeah, that's
that
right.
Inductive argument is about probabilities.
Yeah, yeah.
The
rest he gets completely wrong, but that one he got right.
Now, do they mean probabilities as in like how likely you are to pull a flush hand from a deck of cards?
Well, I mean, probability is probability, yeah, right. So if something has a probability of 1, it means it's a certainty, right? It's guaranteed. If it's 0, there's no chance. Doesn't mean impossible. By the way, 0% does not mean impossible. There's a difference between saying something is impossible and saying something is 0%. You can get into what's called cardinalities and mathematics, where you can have certain things where it has 0%, but it is possible when it comes to transcendental numbers and things of that nature. But an inductive argument just means that the probability is more likely, greater than 50%, that the truth value is the case. So a proposition can only be true or false. That's called the law of excluded middle. So when you have this is where he got confused. When an inductive argument is, my inductive argument was something like, most gumballs in a jar are blue. X is a gumball in the jar. X is blue. That is perfectly cogent, and if the premises are true, it's strong. So you don't phrase it as X is probably true. You don't need to, because it's an inductive argument already. You know it's problematic, right? You know it's not guaranteed, but the conclusion in an inductive argument is not said to be guaranteed. It's just saying that it's true because the proposition can only be true or false. So the conclusion must be true or must be false, and you're just saying it's true based upon the likelihood of it being true from the inductive argument.
Right.
Does that make sense? hopefully.
Got it.
Awesome. And
I think
we
I
already have a
understand.
caller that wants to join in real quick.
Hello.
Hi,
Who we
caller.
got?
Hi, it's Rockface.
Rockface,
Oh,
what's
hey,
up,
Rob.
buddy?
How you doing?
You want to join in for this?
I actually missed part of it because I was dialing in.
He was explaining inductive reasoning and the difference between inductive reasoning when you have multiple sets or if you have a true-false statement.
Oh, that sounds like big brain stuff. I don't do that.
Big brain. Big brain.
But do you have an inbred mind? Is there a mind in a jelly sandwich?
Yeah, my mind's in a loaf of marble rye.
Ooh.
I like marble rye. Okay.
Whoa.
Fun fact: does anybody know what my
Good
favorite bread
choice.
is? I know we go all over the place on this show, so get used to it. But anybody know what my favorite bread is? I think I've said it a few times.
Cheese bread?
Is it inbred?
No, it's not inbred. I thought you were gonna say that's how I like my women. No, it's not inbred.
Hey.
No, think about it. I'm Jewish. Can somebody? I mean,
Jewish rye?
A Jewish rye is really good. No, that is really good. That's an excellent. You know what? That's right up there, but that's not what I'm thinking of.
I feel like Steve is just trying to trick people into being like
come
anti-Semitic
on.
right now.
I'll give you a hand. It's bread. You just kind of you break it off.
Challah bread?
Challah bread. Thank you. Yes. Amazing stuff.
Yay!
But I do like Jewish rye, and I really like Irish soda bread.
Yeah, Jewish rye and Irish soda bread. I've been having a lot of that lately. I got a nice farmer's market near me.
Absolutely, and pumpernickel's good, and marble, rye, any kind of rye I like. So yeah, I'm a big bread fan. And the group.
I don't even know how I tolerated white bread as a kid. Like it's just garbage to me now.
Oh, it's so bad.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's been bleached.
It's disgusting.
Yeah,
It's the worst.
Why eat white bread? I mean, it's been processed and it's been bleached, and I mean, I'd rather have at least if I'm gonna get some cheap bread, it's at least gonna be wheat. You know, get something nutritious.
You might as well be eating like packing peanuts.
Yeah,
like,
there's no
like
nutritional value.
I think I would rather eat packing peanuts. Packing peanuts just dipped in peanut butter. At least you get that like crunch, that satisfaction of like it's like eating a cheesy. An unflavored, unpowdered cheesy.
Did you hear about the guy that ate 25?
It's going to move through you about the same.
There's some guy that ate 25 packets of silicon dioxide. You know those do not eat packets to get their desiccate. He ate 25 of them. It didn't kill him or anything. I mean, believe it or not, your chances of dying from that is really small, if anything. I mean, it's not good for you, obviously. But yeah, he ate 25 packets of them. Oh man.
During lockdown, I actually did buy stuff to make my own bread, but I realized I don't have a rolling pin. So...
just sit on it.
Right?
That'd be like butt bread or something? Just roll it with your butt?
Yeah.
Heather and Justin are here.
I know, hi, Heather. Hi, Justin.
So... the second part of what that guy said. So he got the first part he was right, but also wrong. So he was right in the first part, but like they had us in the first half, but the second half he got a little bit confused.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Okay, and then what about the validity versus deductive versus truth?
Well, yeah,
because you can have something you can have logical reason that's valid, but not accurate.
Yeah, but we still say it's true, though, right? A proposition is either true or false. And so we're making an educated guess based upon the likelihood of the probabilities from the induction. So we can say that a proposition is true through inductive reasoning, right? It's not guaranteed, though. That's the difference. In a deductive argument, it is guaranteed.
So not like a presupposition.
It's not, well, yeah, it's not like a presupposition. Presuppositions aren't guaranteed either, right? They're just assumptions we make.
Right. You're starting off with point A, and your point A might be true or false, but your argument about point A could be true within its own scope, even if it's not correct.
Yeah. Well, we say that it's true, right? But that's not guaranteeing the truthfulness, all right? But we have to make the best guess, right? So induction.
This is the struggle when you start bringing up words like truth, because truth means different things to different people. Do you want to read Macabre's super chat?
Yes, Macabre, and I'm glad you're doing well, my friend. $5 Australian. Ciabatta is homemade. Don't diss the world's greatest bread. Ciabatta bread is good too.
I've never had it.
Yeah, and I like
Got
French
some
rolls.
love coming from Australia.
Yeah, does Australia have any like bread of their own? I mean, do they make a certain kind of bread? I know they put like Vegemite on it and everything, but I mean, do they make their own kind of bread? Vegemite's
Do they
not
make
type
bread
of bread.
out of Vegemite? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, Vegemite bread.
I did
wonder
see
if,
somebody making bread out of. They were instead of using like water or something, they used Gatorade, and it actually worked really well. Yeah, apparently because of like the sugar that's already in the Gatorade and the flavor that's there, it ended up making like a pink loaf of bread that was just like a super sweet bun kind of thing.
I would try it.
Oh, well, it's got electrolytes. It's got what plants crave.
It's got electrolytes,
Right.
yeah. Electrolyte bread. There you go. That'd be good.
Oh, man. I can't believe we actually got President Camacho, basically, with Trump. Yeah, I'm old. I remember that movie.
You can talk about your definitions and agree on one for the sake of the conversation, though. That doesn't mean you can't talk about it. Oh, yeah. If you have like, this is what I mean is when I say conversations are difficult, when you start talking about things like truth, if you have people that have different positions, like they're coming from different places. So if you go to the store and you say, oh, well, no, it's true that this bread costs this amount of money. There's a context to it. You're talking about the price of that bread in that store. It doesn't even mean that that's true universally. It also doesn't mean it's necessarily true even at every store that even is that branch, right?
Yeah,
so,
it's an agreed upon quantifiable measurement.
Right. So if you take that and then you remove it and you plunk it into philosophy, well, now you might question if the bread is real, depending on the conversation you're having. Right?
This reminds me of so many stupid conversations I've had with my stoner friends.
Yeah, no, that's what it is. It's what it feels like.
How do you know what's real, man? What about the multiverse? I don't give a shit about the multiverse. I'm in this universe.
I mean,
I'm stuck here.
And it's completely fine.
Are
to
you
have
though? Are you sure?
presuppositions, right?
How sure?
I don't mind
I'm
saying
pretty
hey, look,
sure.
reality, and this is where like Aaron gets confused. We have to say reality is assumed. We have to, and he doesn't understand that. He's like, reality is reality by definition. Oh no, just stop. It doesn't work like that. We have no way to verify what reality actually is. We just have to assume
reality
there's something
isn't
that is external.
A reality isn't we have to assume we're having an experience because we have no other choice.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a
Exploratory
condition for
mind says you
rationality.
can't. Exploratory Minds for 5 says you can't smash an inbred mind. You can only touch it.
That was funny.
That was so
I
funny.
revisited some of
everybody
those.
out there, smash that like button, smash that subscribe, because you can't actually do it, and this is reverse psychology.
Yeah, come on, guys, help out Steve. He's got 8 kids to feed.
You can only
None of which I know of. That's about many times I've had sex in my
baby.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, I revisited some of those conservative circles that I mentioned last time I was on, and like it's just the same shit they've been saying for 3 years at this point. Like they're like, "Oh, Trump gonna come back? You just wait." I'm like, "All right, I'm waiting."
Yeah.
It's like, what's he gonna do? Keel over and die? That's his
see
next
any
big
chance.
movement.
He's not going to run again. I mean, he's going to be so old, and nobody wants him, and it's not going to
He's a
happen.
fat, unhealthy old fuck. He's not gonna make it that long.
Yeah, I see a very, very low chance of him running, and no chance at all getting elected again. Just too much baggage.
What about daughters? What about other family members?
Possible, that's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very possible.
I mean, I still think they're going to
Just by name recognition alone, because name recognition is very important for U.S. elections. Most people don't pay very close attention to politics. They just, oh, I know Biden. Oh, I know this guy. I know that guy. Like, I know Hillary, and like that's how they vote.
Yeah,
or they're single policy voters.
And that's the problem. A lot of them are just name recognition. I mean, there's been times where voters voted in somebody who was dead just by name recognition, right? So,
most people who voted for Biden don't know a fucking thing about him.
No,
they don't know about
I don't really either.
opposition to They don't know about his opposition to gay rights and how he's like kind of a military puppet and like all these different things about him. No idea.
There's also like a lot of people that because it's a two-party system, you're just like, well, yes.
But at least I got Biden is at least getting some things done. He is doing things. So
he's doing stuff. He's doing a lot more than Trump would for sure.
Stonebutt says he's got neighbors with Trump 2024 signs. I'm like,
oh dear.
That's we have a Trump sign out here too from the last election, 2008. It was actually from 2018. We have a sign out here, and actually, I'm not even kidding. When I order Domino's, I'll even put, sometimes sign with Trump flag. It's not mine. I don't want them spitting my pizza.
Oh yeah, no, we got a lot of that around here. I'm in the most Republican city in Massachusetts, and there's Trump Pence signs all over the place, and they're flying that weird like a police American flag that kind of reminds me of like a Nazi flag for some reason.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which, by the way,
yeah, it's like all right, you fucking bootlickers.
I'm like, you have the right to fly any flag you want, but there are going to be social consequences from it, as there should be, right?
I mean, I wouldn't. No matter what my political stances are, I wouldn't put that shit on my car or on my lawn because I don't want to get vandalized.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the area we're in, so it's not like a big deal. I mean, but I just have to let people know, hey, look, that is not my flag. I am. Don't pin that on me, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's ideologies.
I'm not opposed to cops, by the way. I mentioned before, my grandfather was a hero cop, but that was like a different generation of police. Like they're just basically
I'm
mercenaries.
Very pro police, yeah, but I'm pro good police. I'm pro police that know what the hell they're doing and train properly.
It sounds like you're just anti-legal murder.
My grandfather. He was on the force for like 30 or 40 years. One of the most highly trained guys in the police force. Never had to draw his gun on anybody. He beat the shit out of people once in a while. Yeah, but like that's the difference between cops back then and cops now. Yeah, now they're just like itching to use all this. They're just itching to use all this fucking equipment that they got left over from Afghanistan.
It's part of the ideology and part of the training that sort of goes into the police force now, and it's still not even everywhere, right? It's not everywhere across the planet, let alone everywhere in the United States. There are still like perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable places, right? So it's a weird dichotomy because people will hear things like that and they'll be like, well, my friend is a cop and they're not a bad person, or they'll feel like they're personally getting like somebody's personally going after them. And I usually find that's kind of a little bit of a fragile mindset where it's like, no, nobody's coming at you in particular. Most people aren't even going after individual cops most of the time. It's about like a whole
it's about
thing that has
problem.
Yeah.
No, right.
It's a systemic problem in departments. It's not just individual police, because there's good cops who were forced to look the other way when bad cops in the department are, doing things to the citizenship.
And the struggle with that is that well, what is that good cop supposed to do? Quit? They can't report it because it's a.
There's consequences if they don't comply with the dirty cops.
Yeah. So so what do you do?
Like that either.
Right. So what do you do? Do you quit? Do you stop being a police officer if that's your only income for your family, or you've gotten yourself into
risking your pension?
Yeah, I think a lot of them, what they try to do is they basically
a rock and a hard place.
Well, they kind of go along with it when they're at the lower echelons, the lower ranks, hoping that they make a difference as they get higher.
That is like being a politician. How do you be a good person as a politician when you have to be a dirty person to get anywhere?
Yeah, you have to get down in the muck to even get elected in some places, right? Vandala 1998 for $5 says, Chesh should sing along like she did when you two guest starred on my podcast. Plus, I think most people voted for Biden only because he wasn't Trump, which is probably true. And Chesh will sing anytime. She likes to do that. So.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what she's going to sing.
I don't know either.
Sing a doo-wop by Hanson. Or Umbop.
Umbop.
That's what
Yeah,
it was.
Umbop.
Do up for do up, do up for do that one. Like the
Yeah. People gave that band a lot of shit because they were a pop band. Those kids wrote their own music and they played their own instruments.
Yeah, look,
Like, you gotta give them
no
props.
hate,
Weren't
man.
they were all brothers, right?
Yeah, they had some brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got no
No,
hate.
they were very talented for people that young.
Yeah, there were no Osmonds, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who
Got
was
it.
at that
Yeah.
time?
I actually knew I didn't know the Osmond kids, but I knew the parents, George and Olive. They were actually customers of mine. Yeah. George used to take him out to lunch. George Osmond used to take him out to lunch with me and my girlfriend at the time, and we would just go to, like, he would take us like Mexican food, and I'm like, hey, this is George Osmond, man. This is like Donnie's dad. I'm thinking, and they one time they invited us over to, they lived in Branson. They're both passed. They lived in Branson. They'd come down to St. George, and they had this little apartment that they had rented. And we were sitting there going to talk about, and Olive Osmond would be talking about Tiger Beat magazine and Sean Cassidy and all this other stuff. I was like, man, it's like I throw back to the 70s if I've ever seen it, right?
I'd be curious. So Mikey makes a point of fire them all and start over. I imagine like any good cop would approve of something like that because it gets them out of the situation, and there's nothing to say that they can't reapply. If you were to do something like a sweeping, like
there's no federal judgment moving in that direction. So I mean, that's not going to happen.
No, I'm more thinking like in the hypothetical. Like, so if you were to do that, then I would imagine that people who are good cops would want that or be okay with that because it kind of gives them an out of this rock and harm place they've gotten themselves into.
Yeah, that's.
These are guys who want to be civil servants. A lot of them, and like they're trapped. Like so yeah, I can totally understand that. A lot of them probably do.
Well, they're
want
lied
systemic
to, right?
change. Yeah,
they have suggested that before. People, there's a movement to basically. And they wouldn't do it all at one time because you're going to fire everybody at once. But you basically, you make every police officer reapply as far as get requal. I mean, and see if they actually are qualified to be a cop and get psychologically tested. So it's basically they do. I think they want to do like a third at a time or something, and basically say, look, we're gonna have you all reapply and start from scratch. That's actually been posited before. I forget. There's actually a name for that, and I can't remember what it was. They had that on The Rookie, by the way, a show I watched where they talked about that. Great show.
Tom said if you fire them all, you have a huge training gap, and I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah, it's kind of.
There's some states where you go through like a couple of weeks of training and then they just hand you a gun.
Yeah, is that kind of scary?
Like there's very little screening in certain areas.
And in England, it takes like 2 to 4 years to become a cop. I think you have to have like a degree or something.
And that's why it's like this is not a matter that is very. It's a broad but also very narrow situation. So it just because it's not happening to this degree everywhere doesn't like it's a gradient. So there's different levels, right? So we talk about things like this when it comes to any kind of crime or even when it comes to the demonization of people. If you demonize somebody for something that is like it's not exactly as high or as big of a problem as this thing over here, then suddenly you have nowhere to go. If you start here for something that's here, what happens when you're dealing with something that's here? You've hit the ceiling of the repercussions for actions. So if you decide to demonize somebody because they have a conversation with Muslims, let's say, well, what do you do when somebody's promoting Sharia law? You've already demonized and done everything you can to stop even just talking to these people. You have nowhere to go now, right?
Yeah, it's I mean, like at the surface level, a lot of the problems with our police departments are pretty easy to solve, and they've been talked about for a long time. Just no one's done anything about it.
Yeah. Well, there's the like the drug war. There's things like
that was a massive fail.
Training that does not exist. The cops being immune to consequences when they're on duty. There's the what's the other one? The brain.
Not shooting people.
They're definitely being
indiscriminately.
But
Yeah, they're definitely being
them having to
held
deal
a-
with problems that really ought not they're not trained for, and they ought not to be dealing with in the first place. There we go. That's what it is.
mainly the mentally ill,
Mental health,
which they are
yeah.
completely untrained for.
Oh, absolutely. They
Yeah.
don't know how to deal with that.
Yep, and things like just taking social services and adding them to places. I was talking to somebody recently who said that they think that the solution to some of these problems is more policing, and so I they weren't really able to clarify. Like, I asked, but I wasn't really able to get something that I was able to understand out of like why they think more policing in areas would be more effective or less effective, or why. So I would be curious to have that conversation.
Did they just finish reading 1984 and they're like, seems pretty good?
Kind of sounded like it.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to.
I don't know.
They're going to have to readdress eventually the whole position on qualified immunity. Right now, the way it stands, it's very poorly implemented. It needs to be readdressed. It needs to be much more of a limited form. And I think that they got that pushed through, where at least had some kind of more restrictive qualified immunity, so more of a limited form of qualified immunity, where if a cop does do something that, you know, this seems to be completely against regulations, you know, poor lapse of judgment, they are held accountable for them. Now, I mean, again, a lot of times they are, but a lot of times they aren't. And so, yes, I think qualified immunity is one of those things that really needs to be reevaluated.
I don't know, between them and the Fed and the bootlickers who are supporting them, I think a lot of us are just kind of worn down, and kind of from all the shit we've seen.
Yeah.
Like, seeing that kid in a hotel where the cop was aiming an assault rifle at him and told him to put his hands behind his head and crawl towards him. It's like, you shot this poor fucking kid.
Yeah, that was straight up murder.
For nothing.
Yeah, and nothing happened to that cop. I mean, basically.
I know,
and
you could see. I saw pictures of that guy. You can see the fucking crazy in his eyes. That guy shouldn't be on the force.
Yeah, and those kind of things need to be prosecuted, but they are not, because, you know, police have a lot of basically judicial responsibility of their own. They can make these decisions on the spot, right? Which I think is incorrect when you have somebody who clearly is unarmed.
That's Judge Dredd shit.
Yeah,
that we don't need that.
Yeah, you know, they're not meant to be executioners.
I think people sort of hear arguments like this and they automatically think anti-cop, and that's not what it is, right? This is, if anything, pro-cop, because it's like, no, we want police officers to be giving the tools and the training and the utility that they need to be able to do their jobs, and we don't want them to have to do things that they really shouldn't have to do, and situations they shouldn't be having to deal with, which is like, this is all about reforming the police, is about making the police better, not punishing or removing them entirely.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm
Especially
lucky
as
enough to have a
individuals.
police force in my town that, like, I grew up with all of their kids. I know every single one of them by name. They're all great cops. Like, not everyone has that experience, but, you know, I do. One of them, Officer Driscoll, he solved my friend's father's murder.
Yeah.
Like, there's good cops out there.
Yeah, well, it used to be kids were growing up, you know, if you needed help, go to a cop, right? They were your friends. Nowadays, people are scared of cops, and they should be, because cops have guns that are improperly trained. And yeah, think about this. You're more likely to be shot by a police officer than you are by a burglar nowadays. That's scary, man.
I heard somebody making an argument saying that they're less, like, as an unarmed, this is what they had said, as an unarmed black person, you are less likely to be shot by a cop than you are to be struck by lightning within the country. And I was just like, that's not good argumentation.
Is that, you're less likely to be killed. You're less likely to be killed by a falling coconut.
They do say you're more likely to be killed. Well, they say you're more likely to be killed by a gun than you are, like, I think, a car accident or something like that. But they're taking into account suicides as well, which should in fact be factored in, right? I mean, we're not really concerned about, I mean, I should say we're not concerned about, we are, but we're not concerned about the average person who's not taking their own life being killed by a gun, because they're not going to take their own life. So we want to know the number. What's the odds of being killed by somebody else with a gun, not by your own hand? Because I think they unfortunately they throw in.
Well, you're more likely to be shot. You're more likely to be shot by a citizen, but still, there's there's an abnormal amounts of police shootings, and they're the
Well,
guys
you've
who are allowed
also-
to carry guns.
You've also got this situation where you're comparing something that is a natural event versus somebody's moral choice. And so if one is something that you can affect and have some kind of influence on, you can change the factors involved in a way to make that something less or more likely. The lightning is going to strike no matter what you do. Now you might be able to avoid it by not going outside or not doing this, but not going outside isn't an option if there's a chance you're going to get shot by a cop and you need to live your life. You can't stay inside forever. So why would you not want to change the factors involved if they're changeable factors, even if it's only if the odds are not zero and there's something that can be changed, right?
Well, it's also like obviously the racial aspect of it is a big thing. I mean, fuck, we just like the entire world broke out into riots because of our race violence here from the police. And I mentioned last time I was on, I get pulled over for driving my fucking sports car because they just assume I'm a Latino person. And they come to me with the guns drawn and shit, and they're like, oh no, it's just a cute little white boy. Leave him alone.
Oh, God,
I'm like,
no.
what? Yeah, it's bad.
Well, the person I was talking to...
I'm in Massachusetts. I'm in one of the most progressive states in the union, but it's still really bad here.
The person I was talking to was having questions about that. Basically what they were saying is that, oh, these people are saying it's a race problem, but there's no information to actually back that up, or there's no evidence to back that up. And I was very confused by that. Like if you've got a riot happening in the Capitol and it's treated one way, like in the Capitol, and there's going to be like politicians that are going to be attacked, being held this way, and a protest over here that isn't directed at attacking politicians and leaders being treated this way, how is that not a racist thing? I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen a lot of people talk about that, where it's like, yeah, 800 BLM protesters show up with signs that they just want to hold up in front of the Lincoln Monument, and they send out the National Guard looking like they're decked out for fucking World War III.
Yeah, they escalated unnecessarily.
10,000, crazy fucking conservatives storm the Capitol. And nothing happens.
Yeah. All right. They're like, oh, hey, by the way, make sure you, get some pictures on your way out of the foyer, the Capitol buildings,
Well, there was that
BLM with their burning and looting.
Yeah, take a podium. We got plenty,
Well, and then there's the videos of the cops breaking windows and stuff. The Deviant said, that's Mikey, I have never had drugs in my car, but they have always smelled it and always searched my car. Vandella 1998 for $4.99 said, I didn't think bad cops could think more highly of themselves until they thought they tried to be intimidating to that army guy.
That really looked really bad for them. They're going to get really hammered for that. Well,
there was also that guy that was just standing that they knocked over and killed, that older gentleman. The Capitol.
Well, they didn't. No, I don't think they killed him.
No, not the Capitol building. No, he died. He died later.
Did he? I thought he just had.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, he went to the hospital, and let me double check to make sure.
Yeah, I didn't know he died, but yeah, that was assault. There was no question about that. And again, this goes back to the qualified immunity. Just because you're wearing a badge and a uniform doesn't give you the right to assault people. I mean, you have a right to defend yourself. You have a right to take action when needs be. But when there's a protester doing absolutely nothing, you have no right to go hands on. Absolutely not. And I don't know why they're not prosecuted more.
Badge in a uniform, it's like, okay, you have a piece of metal on you and you're wearing an outfit. Okay, so who are you? You're just another person. So.
And that's why it's a systemic problem. Some people will argue that it's not a systemic problem because there's rules in place that are against these people, and it's not. It's a social rule. It's not a written down rule. Those are different things. You can have a systemic problem, and Riley said in the chat, if your boss is the problem, it's systemic, because now you've got people that can't report their. You've got a problem with cops not being held accountable by the rules that are actually even put in place. So it's a different kind of problem. Yeah,
and they are given special considerations. I mean, obviously, a police have certain things that the average citizen can't do, like arrest powers, right? Ability to take someone's life, if needs be. Now, we all, and what's funny is we all have that power as well, if a defense, right? They have a little more leeway, but they're able to carry a gun. The average citizen has to go through a hell of a lot more process to carry a concealed weapon. So we do give cops special privileges, and they need to. I get that. I understand that. But unfortunately, they still have the same restrictions of the average citizen when nobody's committing a crime. They have no jurisdiction. They can't do anything. And unfortunately, that's lost upon them. They think they have empowerment at all times, and it's not. If an average citizen is not breaking any laws and not doing anything wrong, the police officer has no jurisdiction over them whatsoever. There's only jurisdiction when the person is either committing a crime, about to commit a crime, or has suspicion of committing a crime. That's it.
So yeah, he is not dead.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, he was hospitalized, but he did survive. I thought I'd read that he had died, but no, you're correct. He's not dead as of the posting of this particular article. He's still alive, and that was September 1st.
Still messed him up, and that was completely unjustified. That was that was just if there's a word, police brutality, if there's a phrase that would apply, that would be it. Police brutality. What else would you call that? That was just egregious.
Well, again, this is why it's like an issue with mentality and an issue with it's almost like a cop culture that's expected of the individuals that join, and the hazing that takes place, and the part of the training and what's expected of them by their peers, so by other cops and by their superiors.
Do you think a lot of it?
You think the fucking stops there? No, the fucking just started. Wait till they get to the courts. I went to the courts for an OUI in 2009, and I heard all the cases before me. It was all like Dominican, Black, Puerto Rican people. 2.5 years minimum. 2.5 years minimum. 2.5 years minimum. Like, they didn't even bat an eye.
Yeah,
and then cute white kid shows up. Oh, probation.
Yeah, no, I think
like I almost killed 6 people in a 90-mile-an-hour collision while I was drunk. But if I wasn't white, totally different sentencing.
Well, what is the one that rapist Brock Turner adult. He's not a child. That guy got 3 months or something for because he is a white kid with a swimming record. What?
Yeah, I remember that too.
I think people think that also when people are talking about reforming the police and BLM, that BLM is only talking about police brutality or police murders, and it's so much more than that. It's part of the court system. It's part of the way things are kind of handled, et cetera, et cetera. So,
do you think that a lot of these officers felt much more emboldened under Trump than they would have if it was under somebody other presidency?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think a lot of their bias and these prejudice and a lot of these people. It's
like what you heard. It's like what you heard during the election. All these fucking people came out of the woodwork and they're like, yeah, he's saying what we're all thinking. I'm like, and I'm looking at them. I'm like, that's what you guys were thinking.
That a lot of people
you fucking psychos.
Yeah, they have these.
Yeah, there's a couple people looking around being like, wait, what? I didn't get the memo on this.
It's so scary that these people have been in society for and they're they've been silent. I'm sure a lot of them have expressed it, but far more.
No, it's like they live. It's like I got to put on the glasses and oh my god, they're everywhere.
Yeah, but you know what? That's good. I think that in a way we needed that. It exposed a lot of people that would have probably never been exposed before. So people know now who the people are that feel comfortable espousing racial things and prejudice and bigotry and hatred. And then society acts accordingly.
Mold dies in open air and sunlight.
Yeah. So, in the long run, I think it has a positive effect. Do I wish things would have been different and we didn't have Trump and have to go through all that? Sure. But
there's better ways we could have done it, but we didn't. So, because we're people and we suck.
We do.
Human beings.
And I spelled your name wrong. I will fix this. Yes. I got it.
It makes for when you the thing is you have this balancing act that you need, that society on a whole kind of has to do, and it's like, if we don't allow anybody to talk about this, it festers and becomes a bigger and bigger and bigger problem because it's not being addressed as a problem. But then if you do talk about it, you're maybe encouraging it, depending on how you go about talking about things. So this is like what we were talking about when Steve was covering the R and Raw debate discussion with those three Muslim men. Talking to Muslims, not a problem. Encouraging and enabling Sharia law may be a problem.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's weird because they think that you talk to somebody who you have a different ideological viewpoint with, all of a sudden you're promoting that viewpoint. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. It's never worked that way.
It's a them thing. It's about othering people. But if you recognize that even the worst human beings doing the worst crime imaginable are still human beings, it's kind of freeing in a way, because it allows you to sort of recognize people for what they are, rather than villainize and demonize for what they want or what they are thinking and or doing. Because even if they've done something wrong, if you can't understand and you can't recognize them as a person, you're not really in any position to be able to expose much of anything.
Yeah. Look at the people that were complaining that I was getting along with Jonathan Safadi, right? Who, like I said, I've known for quite some time. But why alienate him just because we differ on young Earth creationism? I differ with Dr. Humphreys on young Earth creationism, but because I have a rapport with him, I was able to facilitate a conversation with him and Dr. Dr. Henke and Dr. Lachelle, who wrote a paper showing Dr. Humphreys to be wrong, showing his math to be incorrect. That would never happen if Dr. Humphreys and I never really got along, right? So, the fact that I can get along with Dr. Safadi. Now, I don't expect he'll be able to change his position, right? But as long as he's, willing to engage, why alienate people because you disagree with them? I want to have people that we disagree with that we can at least have conversations with. I don't want to talk to dishonest people, right? There's a difference. If you and I disagree, that's fine. If you and I disagree and you're dishonest about it, we're not going to have a dialogue, right? And I've never seen Dr. Safadi be dishonest with me. Now, other people might disagree. They might have had different experiences with him, but, he is a young creationist, so there's obviously a small degree of dishonesty, clearly, but I think he actually really does believe what he believes, and those are the people that I want to have conversations with. I don't want to talk to the young creationists who, they're not actually believers, right? They just pretend to be, or flat earthers, or just pretend to be. Those are not people I want to have conversations with.
We got another caller. I think we should probably let Rotfeast go.
Awesome.
All right. Yeah. Good talking to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the conversation.
All right. Take it easy, Trish and Steve. Have a good one.
Bye.
And Dr. Kroon has to go real quick. He says, I'll have to say, but I have to go grade astrophysics lab work and make the rest of my EM and nuclear physics final exam. Love you all. Until next time, brothers and sisters. And yeah, dude, we got to talk about nuclear physics one of these days, man. Even though I've forgotten so much, but, one day.
And we have another caller. Who's that?
Another caller.
Hi, this is Mikey Famine of Mikey Famine.
I vaguely remember this
Mikey!
guy. Yeah.
First time, long time.
Yes, we
First
like
time
it
caller.
We like it long time.
How you doing?
We make it last for us.
I'm downloading a bunch of files and organizing my hard drive. So,
Is it porn?
I don't know why that's important to know what kind of files it is.
No, she didn't ask what kind of porn. That's a little bit invasive.
I don't know.
We don't judge your
I don't know
proclivities.
why we need to know that part, but yeah.
There's a really good program for that. Not porn, but there's a really good program for organizing your hard drive. What is it called? It visually shows all your all your documentation, and you can see what's taking up a lot of space, and if you got multiple instances of the same file. What is it called? Winstat. Winstat. Have you tried Winstat? I think it's called.
I have not heard of that, but
Check it out. Winstat.
Down.
It's a great
And I
program.
got a new printer. I've been very studious today.
So surely, Mikey, you don't have anything to say about the Black Lives Matter stuff.
Nah, he doesn't have any interest in that stuff.
No, the cops are fine. They need qualified immunity because that is supposed to be set up so that in case a cop breaks the law that they didn't know that they were breaking, they are covered by that. It
That's why I
works
said
great.
limited. They need limited. Right.
It
I do
works,
understand the need for qualified
but
immunity.
but it works great for citizens. Like if you break a law that you didn't know was a law, you can just go to the judge and say, "Hey, I have qualified immunity," right? And they're like, "No, go to jail."
Yeah,
now.
exactly. There's a double
No.
standard there, right?
You
Yeah.
would think the people enforcing the law would be pretty well trained in what those laws are. You would think so that a qualified immunity for that reason wouldn't be necessary.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, to be devil's advocate, the cop is not exactly breaking those laws, but they're just saying, "Hey, look, we think you broke this law. We're going to detain you for it or arrest you for it." But now, if they broke the law, then they should be held to the same standard. Matter of fact, if if they're not code 3 or whatever, they're not with sirens and they're just driving in their police cars like anybody else, they are supposed to abide by the same exact laws of the road as anybody else, right?
Yeah, but they don't.
Of course not.
Like, I got when I was like 22, I bought a Dodge Neon, and I had it for like.
Oh, my heart goes out to you.
I love that thing, dude.
I've had 2 Dodge Neons, and both of them had oil leaks.
It's the way that the engine's built. It's not a great engine.
No, it's not. Low torque.
Mm-hmm. But I'm waiting at the light. Beep beep. Oh, got my green arrow finally, and I almost got T-boned by a fucking cop, and it was the dude. He's the son of the principal of the high school, and he had been on the force for like 6 weeks. And I fucking shot him the bird. I'm like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he just kind of looked at me like, you want to go there?" And I was like, "Fuck you." And I just fucking drove off. But it was just like, he didn't turn his lights on or anything. He was just didn't want to wait through the red. Like, he was like, "Fuck that, I'm going."
Yeah, they do that.
And he almost
they'll flick their lights. I hate that.
Just to get to the light. It's such bullshit.
I used to live in an apartment that followed a strip of road, and it was like a long stretch of road, and there were a couple of lights, but not too many. And it was a pretty large road, and it was newly paved. Like it was a nice shape, and the cops. Oh my God, you could hear them just ripping down the road because they would flick their lights so that way the light would change so it would be green, and they would just fly. But they didn't have sirens on. They didn't actually have their lights on consistently. So anybody coming any other direction wouldn't see them and wouldn't know. And this is like legally, this was like a 60 mile, so I'm Canadian, so it was 60. And they were flying at least 120. At least they were treating it like a highway.
Did you?
Now they did do it in the middle of the night, which is better and worse at the same time, I guess.
Did you watch the? There's a video where this cop had pulled over this car. One of the passengers had yelled like "F the police," and the cop pulled him over and just berated that kid. He got fired, by the way, as well as he should.
Good.
And so I mean. That was that's a train, and this guy had been on the force for like a long time. It's like they don't understand that they have to abide by certain rules. And I'm sorry, you can't pull somebody over.
Verbal harassment is still harassment.
Yeah,
but that's why I was like dumping in the chat over and over. They need to be damn near lawyers because what they're asked to do is uphold the law. And you can't do that if you don't know what it is. Right, if you don't know where your sidelines are, you can't play your sport properly. If you're just out in the stands throwing the football to fucking people just watching the game, you're not being a very good quarterback. And if they don't know what their limits are and what they're supposed to be enforcing, if they don't know what that is, who's supposed to stop them? Nobody. And now with qualified immunity, it's like, well, it's fine that they threw it from the stands into the end zone. It's still a touchdown. It's like, no, that's not how any of this works. That's not how any of this works.
Yeah, there needs to be a higher standard of education, a higher standard of background and psych tests. Realistically, I think it would be really great for cops to get like annual, at least psych checks, because if you're in a high stress job and you're in high stress situations, then I think it's important to take care of your mental. And so I think just in general, it's important to take care of your mental. Realistically, people should be able to walk into a psychologist's office like a clinic just to be like, oh, hey, I'm here for my regular checkup. That should be like a thing that happens. That would be fantastic. And it would take a lot of stigma out for people with issues, but it would also help with policing because now you don't have somebody who's suffering from PTSD who, it gives also somebody else for them to report to, right? So it's like,
Well, I mean, it's not like there's like toxic masculinity going on about it anywhere in the police force.
No,
none
there's
of them
definitely
ever
like
have that
no
problem.
hero, I'm a big macho man issues at all that go on with it.
There's no little PP. There's no little PP giant fucking pickup trucks in the fucking police parking lot
with the
truck
balls on the
nuts.
back.
Yeah, the truck nuts just hanging.
I think there's two things that need to be addressed when a cop does something that doesn't have any kind of lawful standing, right? Any kind of law backing it. There's the one aspect of course, charges being dropped, right? So I mean that obviously is a primary thing, right? So a person shouldn't be ever found guilty of something, a crime they did not commit. The second is if it's egregious enough, should there be repercussions for that officer, and if so, what are they? For minor stuff, again, I'm not a huge fan of saying, look, this was a minor thing, it was inconvenience. The person didn't go through any kind of judicial system. They just got detained. They found out there's no problem, and they sent him on his way, whatever. But if there's something to the point where the officer has woefully neglected the law, and because of that, somebody has suffered, there should be some kind of criminal liability, not just for the police force, because right now basically you can sue the city, but you can't sue the officer individually normally, right? Because of that
that's why all that money that gets paid out to families of like people who die or even people who
the tax money.
Yeah, that's all tax, but that needs to come out of that needs to come out of the pension fund.
Yeah, well, or something along the lines. I mean, it needs to affect the officer directly, because right now it doesn't affect the officer. I mean, the taxpayers are paying for that. It's affecting us.
Sunday Warship said I got pulled over. I got pulled out of my car, slammed against a wall, frisked, and detained once at 17 because a friend yelled "fuck the police" out of my window.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing as that kid.
Maybe police should be less fragile about stuff like that.
I was detained at 15, and we were basically walking. We were going to be walking through the school grounds, right? And there was a house that was right next to the school that I don't no idea who the hell ever lived there. Nope. Wasn't even paying attention to anything, and I guess there was some cops doing a drug bust there. And we just happened to be in the area. We were cutting through a fence next to it, and all of a sudden, I got yanked and I got pulled and thrown to the ground. And I'm like, am I being mugged? Am I being attacked? They didn't even ask their police, and then they're like, they finally said you can't go anywhere, blah blah blah. Set us on a curb, frisk us, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? I was like, I don't even know what the hell, why we were being stopped or anything. And it happened to be they were doing, like I said, a bust on the house there, but we just happened to be in the area. But why? We're not in any kind of warrant or anything. We just happened to be literally cutting through the school grounds, but we got stopped for that. There was no reason to stop us and throw me down the ground like that. It didn't hurt or anything like that. I wasn't like brutalized, but still, it in my mind's eye, I was like, what the hell? What gave them the right to do this?
Why would anybody go to you for protection? Why would anybody go to you for help if you're behaving, or if people expect you to behave this way? Whether it be, the thing is like, if you're in a situation where even the how would you put it? Even if the police had done nothing wrong, right? If the police had done nothing wrong, if the public perception of you is that you are dangerous and that they are afraid of you and your job, right, and you're volatile, but your job is supposed to be to protect and serve, you need to change something about either your presentation or whatever you're doing. So even if the police had done nothing wrong, which I don't believe for a second, you still need to reform whatever it is you're doing, because you are now supposed to be serving a public that is, you can't do your job with the way things currently are. So if that is the case, if that is how you're being viewed by the public, then something needs to change.
Real quick.
Period.
Real quick. Zan says Steve is sexy as F. Thank you for that, Zan. I actually said Cheshire. What's the difference? But you are frozen in a very sexy position there, Chesh. I'm going to call you back on Skype. Maybe that might fix this problem.
Okay.
So they can still hear us and everything because we're on Meet. So let me just call you back on Skype real quick, okay?
Okay.
I actually have to like manually get rid of Skype because it's crap. I can't even like close it.
So maybe it's on your end, not on my end.
It could be. It's one of our ends.
Heat Shield says, I was held at gunpoint by 5 cops on my knees in the middle of a road at night in the rain for over an hour, being told I would die tonight if I moved an inch repeatedly. When asking why, call ?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
That's the danger of having untrained people out there doing things that aren't their job. Because if you know what the law is, then you know what the penalty for whatever they're doing is, and that kind of gives you a sense of how serious to take things. But instead, they're trained like soldiers, and everyone is their enemy, and you can't trust anybody, and you got to look out, because then the enemy's going to get you, and you're going to go down, and then your brothers are going to come and save you, and then that's not what this is. Because the same streets that they're walking, grandmas are walking, little kids are playing. Like, they're not in a war zone. This is not Halo. You can calm the fuck down.
Right. There was a video of a cop. A guy came into the station with a knife, and the cop confronted the guy, but he never pulled his gun out. He sat, he relaxed, and he talked to the person. And there's a lot of people who are in desperate situations that need help. And when your response to them needing help is to shoot them or to kill them, then they're either not going to come to you for the help they need, or they're going to lash out at you and be afraid of you, even if you do approach kindly. So, even if a cop,
Skype real quick. I think you have it on.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Even if a cop does approach someone kindly, and they are like a cop that is not a threat as an individual, you're going to be identified as that threat, even if you're not. And so, the cops are in a little bit more of a dangerous situation because of the public perception. So, and that's every cop. And is that fair? No, not necessarily. That may not be fair, but it's also not fair for people to feel threatened by you every time they leave their house. People aren't threatened by getting struck by lightning every time they leave their house. Only maybe when there's a thunderstorm. And there's very clear indications of thunderstorms.
I mean, but all this, at the end of it, all this shit is easy. Like, it's easy. Like,
yeah, most of the solutions to this are not a big deal.
It's like super easy. And and I saw a bunch of reports of like cops saying, "Oh, if they get rid of qualified immunity, I'm quitting." I'm like, good.
That's fine with me. Yeah, but
that's what everybody agreed about that.
Yeah,
the police agreed about that. The police is like, I'm never going to noise complaint call again if I don't have this thing, and everybody said, good. We don't want you here.
You probably suck. Bye.
Why do you need to do a break and enter for somebody calling for a noise complaint? Like, what are you doing?
There's something similar on Twitter. There's some software development company or something like that where like the top 6 developers were all woke people that are like, oh, we're going to quit because of this. And other people are like, we'll take a job. We'll do it. The company just went, okay, sure. And they succeeded. I
mean, that's kind of what happened with the ACA, isn't it?
Yeah, but they haven't done very well since all that split. They've
it's because they didn't actually fix anything.
Yeah, they didn't fix anything. That's the problem. Yeah, and they've gotten even worse, if anything. So, yeah, it's amazing when you don't actually fix a problem. You just kind of, bury your head on it and not let people talk about it. And then, hey, if you talk about this, we're going to kick you out of the group, which they did with many people.
I'm
just ready to get rid of all the cops and start over.
So there is a push. So in Canada, there's a push from the more extreme left, which is also our NDP party is left of our Liberal Party. And the NDP is actually doing really, really well right now in Canada with like how, particularly in Ontario, with how they're being perceived by the public and kind of where they're in their presence on social media and stuff. But there's some people that are part of the NDP that are even a little bit more, maybe what you might call a more extreme left, that are like, let's just abolish police. And the NDP leader's like, I I don't think we're ready for that yet. And it's like there are places that like policing, if you look at the history of where policing even came from, there was a time where people were perfectly content to live without police and things were fine. So I think that's an interesting conversation to have, but
maybe Mikey
might
should
not be
become a
ready for it yet.
federal an FBI agent. Dr. Cross says the only time I pull over is to be sexually harassed, so that's lucky and very creepy. But LAPD is the worst. I've never been pulled over to be sexually harassed. I'm a little bit.
I wonder
I
why.
don't like the LAPD either. They've never sexually harassed me. Damn it! But no, they're not the greatest. They've had a lot of issues. I mean,
the number of cops raping people. Let's not. It should be 0 is the answer, and anything above 0 is not acceptable.
Gary says the ACA is booming a cult of woke assholes and no sense of humor. Of course, that's the whole thing. That's their shtick nowadays, right? It's atheism 2.0. Yeah. I look, man. We all try to help them out, and they're doing this fine. They make money for their fundraisers. They do okay. But they've bred a whole generation of atheist idiots. That's for damn sure. I mean, they're just as bad as any Christians I've ever seen. There's no difference. It's the same exact cult mindset.
I really do. When we get Non Sequitur Show back, I really do want to have a conversation with somebody who's like super pro police and somebody who wants to get rid of the police, because I would love to hear both.
I don't know if anybody wants to get rid of the
somebody
police.
Who wants to like more militarize them. There's gotta be. There has to be somebody.
How do you? I mean, there might be people that want true anarchy, right? But I don't see how that's gonna.
Well, I'm not talking about true anarchy. I'm just talking about like abolishing the police as they are now. So the thing is like abolishing the police as they are now may severely limit to like, okay, no, there's only SWAT, but the police have been. What do you replace it with? Like, if you remove police, where do you go for if you're a domestic violence victim?
Well,
like,
how
what
does the
happens?
UK do it?
Right?
The UK doesn't have the average police officer doesn't carry anything that's lethal, right? But they do have a tactical force, just like
I have heard the argument that police should only be for emergency situations. So emergencies. Like most domestic abuse calls do not qualify as like 911 emergencies. You can call 911 because you're threatened, but you will not be treated the same way because it's not assumed that you're going to die right then and there. So they respond and they get there when they get there. And so the idea is to remove all of that from the police entirely and make separate departments that deal with different things like that. And the police are reserved for active shooter, or police are reserved for hostage situations. But
you don't even know what you're getting yourself into, right? When the average officer pulls over a car, they don't know what they're getting themselves into. So, I mean, there might be instances of
traffic cops would be abolished. There wouldn't be traffic police anymore.
For simple reports, they might need, a type of officer that doesn't carry a gun, that just, goes out and takes a simple. You have a report of a bike stolen. Let's go out and take the report. Something that doesn't require carrying a lethal
police officers.
gun.
They'd be more like investigating a situation. So that there's one that's I did hear that somebody said that the traffic cops and speed limits outside of like very specific situations are actually more dangerous when it comes to traffic and cause more accidents than they prevent. But that was an interesting thing.
I don't know how it works in Canada, but I can tell you down here in California, a lot of people don't know this. As a matter of fact, there's really there's a couple different kinds of signs. One of which is called a regulatory sign, right? And another one is just called an informational sign. When we have a white speed limit, like 55 miles an hour, that is a regulatory sign. That means you have to obey and you can't go over 55 miles an hour. If it's a yellow sign that says 55 miles an hour, that's not regulatory. That's a guideline, right? So a lot of people don't understand that if you get pulled over and a speed limit that says 50, like we have a little road down here that says 10 miles an hour, and it's yellow. That's just advisory. You could go to whatever the actual speed limit is for the roads around here, which I think is 25 or 35 for residential. But there's a difference between regulatory signs and informational signs, at least in California.
But I mean, with the same as far as like the separation of duties, like people go to medical school, but we don't have surgeons taking down information. We don't have OBGYNs doing heart surgery. Like, I don't know why cops are suddenly this this Swiss Army knife.
They need more specialization, you're saying.
Yeah, so they don't all have to do everything.
Yeah, I'm not okay with it.
And to set it up in a way that they all have to respond to everything, but then they don't even train them for everything. They just take them to the gun range and just show them how to shoot targets and shoot paper. And it's like, well, what is the point of this? What is this? This is never going to work if we continue to use this obviously broken system.
Yeah, the reality is the police are a paramilitary organization. That's just how they are. They're a paramilitary organization. In the military, people have their specialties, right? I mean, a lot of different specialties in the military for that very reason, because nobody can be expected to, your MOS or your rate, but nobody can know everything, right? Now, there's a lot of cross training, but you still have one field that you are specialized in. Cops usually don't have that until they make detective.
And that's problematic.
And that takes a very long time.
I'd be curious to know what the training or expectation is for for what information an officer takes down during a report. So I know that, or when they arrive on a scene. So I know that the individuals, again, I'm talking non-emergency, individuals will write down their own statements about what had happened, and they usually try and get that as quickly as possible. But what the cop decides to write down or dictate, and I don't mean tell you, I mean dictate, it doesn't write it down. What they decide to take down and what they view as important and in that case at that time period affects a lot of things. So I'd be curious to know what their training is for something like that.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, they're supposed to just write down notes. They have their own notes they can write down. They have to write down things in case they get called into court, right? Because if somebody fights a ticket, they're not going to be expected to remember details off the top of their head. Usually they have to look at their notes and stuff like that, which is perfectly fine. I got no issue with that. But for example, we don't have a stop in an ID state. There has to be a reason for it. You can't just walk up to the average citizen and say, hey, show me your papers. It doesn't work like that. And I think that's, should be in all states. Unless you are committing a crime or about to commit a crime or suspected to have committed a crime, there's no reason to identify. There's no law for it in most states. There are some, but anyways.
But you can see their reaction in the chat sometimes when somebody says, hey, listen, we're going to get rid of police in this area. They assume no regulation in that area. That's not the case. You can still have regulation, like traffic regulation, but you take it away from police. It's not a police issue anymore.
And so, I don't know if you guys have tollways up there, but I know damn well that if I drive through the tollway with no fucking no iPass, no, they're gonna fucking mail me a ticket. So if you see me commit a traffic infraction, and you have fucking all the cameras on the
just
earth
mail it.
strapped on, just mail me the fucking ticket. Why do I have to pull over, do this whole rigmarole? You got me. If I roll a stop sign, you got me. Mail me the damn ticket. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want you sniffing around my vehicle. I don't want you fucking accusing me of shit where I have to defend myself. I don't want to have an interaction at all. Just mail the fucking ticket.
And pulling somebody over on the highway is dangerous. You're slowing down and moving people off to the side and getting out of vehicles on the side of a highway.
That's how a lot of people die.
If you can take that out, if you can remove traffic stops in that way, except for emergency situations.
Why don't they just have more pullouts or something like that? I mean, you're right. Stopping people on a highway is very dangerous. That's how a lot of cops are killed. Why not have a way to pull somebody over in a safety region kind of thing, right? And then if you try,
well, if they don't know, if they're going to pull somebody over and they don't know what they're going to get into, so they're hair triggered, and the people don't know what they're getting pulled over for, so they're hair triggered. If there's situations where you can remove almost all of that, so that way there's less danger for the cops, there's less danger for the people that are driving by, there's less people for less danger for the people that have been pulled over. Why would you not make that adjustment?
Why don't you just wait for the next exit and make it so people are aware that if you are stopped, you go onto the slow lane, you get off the next exit, and you go into the first available, gas station or something.
Just mail them the fucking ticket. You don't even have to stop.
But there's a problem with that. Is if it is something that needs to be corrected, because of safety things, maybe.
Well, the only thing I can think of that would be considered a potential emergency situation, it would be preventative. But if you remove speed limits in the way that they are now, then you wouldn't necessarily have to worry about people driving quickly and recklessly. This is the reason why people drive quickly, or a lot of the reason why it's considered recklessly is because people are limited by those traffic limitations. So if you change the traffic limitations, suddenly you change what the dangerous driving speed is. So if the dangerous driving speed is no longer 120 and it's actually 140, what changes is that people are now driving in the way that they're most comfortable. And if people are more comfortable driving that way, they're less likely to feel like they're rushing, and they're less likely to drive or make mistakes because they're more comfortable, right? Stuff like that.
Yeah, Mikey. So we have another caller to also join us. Mikey.
All right, I will see you guys later.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Mikey.
All right,
no one heroes forever.
Who's the new caller? Who do we got?
Hey, it's Smitty.
Hi, Smitty. How's it going?
Smitty. Holy cow! What up? Are you going to flirt with Cheshire for the next 45 minutes?
Nah, everyone else has that covered, so
You can. We don't care.
Back and let them handle it.
You want to flirt with me for the next 45 minutes? Fuck Chesh.
And why do you think I called in?
Thank you. Yeah. See, it's not always about Chesh. Damn. Okay. But anyways, what's
that's
for us,
like
buddy?
99% of the time.
Yeah, that's
Right,
95% at least, right?
Despite the misconception that 99% of the time it's 99% about me.
Yeah. Did you hear that we got married?
It's usually not.
Smitty, you didn't hear that? We were secretly married and eloped somewhere.
Aww.
You and Chesh?
Yeah, why not? What? You don't think I can get a Chesh?
I don't know.
Oh, I
Does
thought
he
you
call
meant
you
him.
Daddy?
Did you
I thought
listen
you
to
meant
that?
you two.
Did you hear him? He's like, "Oh, you can't get a Chesh. I can get a Chesh if I want a Chesh."
I can? Let me write that down somewhere before I forget.
She's out of your league. Oh, well, that might be true, but whatever. All right, what you got for us, Smitty?
Yeah.
I have no
So I
say
wanted
in
to call
this.
in. You guys were talking about how, people sort of like excuse cops for like all the killing they do basically because they're in a uniform and they're sort of held up on a pedestal. And I wanted to talk about the culpability of soldiers, especially of the U.S., who volunteer to invade other people's countries and go kill them. And people make excuses for them, saying like, oh, they're just following orders and they didn't know any better and all this stuff. And it's like,
well, they're lawful orders, right? I mean, that's the difference. If they're a soldier,
I mean, kind of. Well, first of all, a lawful order that's to murder, someone.
But it's not murder if it's lawful.
Not follow that.
That doesn't follow, right?
Oh yeah, I do know that you use murder to mean
Unlawful
legal
killing,
versus
right.
illegal, but I use it. But I use it to mean justified versus unjustified. So like if a cop is legally allowed to kill someone who's not doing anything wrong, let's say, I would consider that murder. And
well, that's
the same
because
for
it's against but it's murder because it's against the law, right? There's a legal aspect.
I just said I just differentiated that if it wasn't against the law, I would still consider it murder because
yeah, gotcha.
But
I mean, soldiers have a job to do, and it's not easy. I mean, obviously, war is hell, and people die in war. There's no question about that, and it sucks. And maybe there might be one day where they have like a Star Trek thing that just say, "Hey, look, it's all computerized, and we just send people to their deaths, by the computer," which is stupid. But there is something to be said by warfare. Eventually, I think, is going to be almost all done computer wise, as far as like espionage and viruses and things of that nature, right? We won't even need actual warfare for the most part, because what's the point of warfare? The only warfare we see nowadays is mostly religious, right? We see a lot of people
political.
Yeah, there's some political things, but even then, it's not much. We don't see a lot of these countries.
I would say
they're not aggressive any longer toward. We have a few skirmishes here and there, Croatia, for example, with Russia, but we don't see North Korea going off and just attacking Japan for the hell of it, kind of thing.
America's at war with like 20 countries, and it's all economic.
I mean, there's like
an imperialistic. But what I wanted to talk about was how much are soldiers morally culpable for volunteering to join wars that have been known to be big civilian casualty things and based on lies for like 2 decades now. Like, how long are people going to keep making excuses for how, cops are bad, but soldiers are veterans are not?
There is something to be said for someone who has been lied to about the war that they're fighting. If they've earnestly been lied to and they didn't know, I think that there is a degree of maybe might be able to give some leeway. Does that make them completely irresponsible? No. You've also got people who join the military because not only are they lied to, but they're also taken advantage of. That needs to stop in America. America's really, really bad for their military going out to very specific, like, destitute people to convince them to join the army because they have no other choice. And that's like the recruiting tactics. That's the term I'm looking for. Should probably be.
Yeah, recruiters can actually lie to people to get them to join. That's straight up. They can lie.
Absolutely. Maybe change some of those things. Now, if you want to talk about whether or not soldiers are the laws aren't the same in every country. So do you expect a soldier from America to follow American laws on non-American soil, and vice versa? Should they be following the laws of that land? Should they be following, or are they here to impose new laws on other people? And is that not okay? So in some cases it might be, and in some cases it might not be that it, and the thing is that because of the way things are and are not regulated within the military about what is and what is not reported and how, I think the direction you would need to take to address this kind of a thing is, one, public perception, which is that would be political, and second, recruiting, but also the people responsible for making the decisions. So if you've got somebody who's been forced into a situation because they've been taken advantage of and lied to at the recruitment office, and then they have no choice but to be berated and bullied and psychologically basically tortured until they're not
forced to be. I would just say that they're not forced to be in the military, whether or not they've been lied to, and whether or not they were in a hard economic place. I'm sure some of the times they're like homeless and about to starve to death, but a lot of the times it's just like they're just regular poor. They just work like a bad job. But
I mean, sure, that's fine. But the way you fix that isn't by punishing.
America's been doing this stuff for 200 years. Like, at what point do I expect people to look into? And soldiers, I mean, there's soldiers who do know better now, and whenever they talk about the military, it's not, oh, like, what a bad moral decision I made to not look into this, and recommending other people not join the military because it's morally wrong. Like, they talk about the
moral qualms.
Economic opportunity,
and I have no moral compunctions about it, and no reservations. Now, my recruiter didn't lie to me or anything like
that's
that.
Like a
but
problem to me.
Would I've done it again, knowing what I know now? No, absolutely not. It is hell. 60 people that are not in the military have no idea what it's like. It is 6 years of your life being turned over that you have no control over, and you think a job is bad. You think a 80-hour job is bad, right? Like a 120-hour job a week. It is your life consists of this every day regiment. It's a lot of freaking work, and I highly don't recommend it. But I don't see a moral issue.
I'm really talking more about like the civilian casualties and like.
Yeah, so if Steve is in the Navy, that's a little bit different than there's a difference between the military. Right.
So if you join the military because Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, that's completely different than you join the military because
9/11.
Because 20 years ago, George Bush and Colin Powell and all them lied about weapons of mass destruction, and we're still in Iraq. Like.
Well, I don't. Like I said, I don't think that was actually a lie, because I know for a fact there were chemical weapons. We literally disposed of them in I think it was Bikini something or other. I don't remember the exact place we went to, but it was off the coast of Hawaii. We literally were escorting chemical weapons to be disposed of from Syria, I believe it was. So these countries do have chemical weapons, which are considered weapons of mass destruction, right? So I mean,
well, that's fair, but I mean, America supported Iraq during the height of their atrocities. So I mean, true. It was never about that in the first place.
Yeah, no, we supported totalitarian regimes, and we
still do to this day.
Some of them up, right? I mean,
the people who attacked us on 9/11 were all Saudi Arabians.
Yeah,
I think what you're looking for then is political and military reform.
No. That's not what I'm looking. Well, I am looking for that, but what I'm talking about is a social like change so that people don't make excuses for soldiers themselves.
Well, that would be
soldiers.
that would be how you would change that. The way you make changes to political and military things is not through political means, it's through public opinion. Look at what's happening with the police. If public opinion of the police did not change, there would be no reason to change the police, right? So if public opinion does not change about either soldiers or the military, then there's no reason to ever change it. But the way you would go about that would not to be going after individual soldiers that may or may not have known better, may or may not be part of this culture, may or may not be taken advantage of, et cetera, et cetera. The way you'd want to go after it is you'd want to go after it through by changing the ideal, by not going after individuals the same way people aren't going after individual cops outside of extreme circumstances. So you would need to look at political change, as well as more exposure of what the army is actually doing versus what people perceive the army is doing. If it's presented to the populace as, oh, look, we're going to bring freedom to these places when nobody asked for your help, America, then that will help change that people need to know what's going on before they can really change their opinion, and that's but not that simple.
The same people that are like making excuses for America's volunteer soldiers signing up to be a part of these war crime invasions are also the same people that question the government on vaccines and everything else. I don't really think it's necessarily just that people are being tricked and that they're all a bunch of dummies. I think it's that people are failing morally to look at the wars with even like 1% of their brain.
What do you think? Let me ask you. Do you think that we should be pulling out of Afghanistan, even though the Taliban even just launched? They launched an attack the day we started withdrawals.
Yeah. I mean, we're still in their country. If soldiers were in our country, there would probably be militias attacking them.
Yeah, but the fact remains that the Taliban organization is a very detrimental organization to the entire world, right? So, I mean, as long as they exist, do we have? Oh, yeah. I mean, I completely believe this, but that's again subjective opinion, and I accept that. But if the governments think that as well, I mean, you don't think that they have a right to have some kind of occupation where these organizations exist?
I think America's occupation engenders more, resistance. I think the longer we're over there,
I think we have
turns people against us more and more. It doesn't. So there's more terrorists now than when we started the fucking war on terror.
So what you're saying is you think that America's presence is enabling or causing people to be more sympathetic towards, at least sympathetic from the people locals, right?
Yeah, all you have to do is put the shoe on the other foot. If a bigger country was occupying the United States,
well, I mean, if we were killing our citizens to the point, like I said, like we had Sharia law here in the Taliban, and we had civil rights and human rights violations, I would be the first one to say, "Come in and help us," right? Invade us.
I don't think
need help.
War in Afghanistan has shit to do with Sharia law or human rights.
No, but that wasn't my point. My point is that there's human rights violations.
I mean, it's just an excuse.
It is a justified excuse, I think, though.
Well, I think we're talking about two different things. There's more than one reason to do something, right? So there may be, is it okay to do something that benefits other people if you want to benefit from it? Right? So is it okay to say, hey, listen, I'm going to help these people because helping them is in my best interest?
Look, I have nothing against a soldier, giving a bottle of water to somebody while they're over there. But I mean, I don't see, I don't know why we would want to, other than like the government, I understand why they would want to frame it as a human rights thing, but we support Saudi Arabia, and they're the worst of the worst on that.
Oh, and I agree with you on that. I think our support for Saudi Arabia is ridiculous. I mean, it's only because of the oil that they have. That's the only reason they have support, and that to me is not a justificatory reason to support. They are a ridiculous regime.
They give us our oil. They give us their oil, but when countries don't give us their oil, like Venezuela or Iran, then they're on the shit list.
Yeah, that's sad that we have to be dependent upon them, and we shouldn't be. There's other means that we don't have to be, and I think that we should completely cut ties with Saudi Arabia. Like I said, they are just a ridiculous regime, and who knows what's going to happen in Afghanistan? We're pulling out, and let's see what happens. I have no way to predict that future.
I'll believe that when the last soldier is out of Afghanistan for a year.
They're moving him out. I mean, it's going to take some time, but
we've yo-yoed the numbers for 20 years.
Well, I mean, some countries we've been
when we reduce the troop numbers. When we reduce
South Korea, you're in South Korea. America's in South Korea because South Korea asked them to be there.
Yeah, but they want us to be there. But still, I mean, we do have presence in other countries.
Yeah, I mean,
there's
I don't have as big of a problem with like Japanese and Korean bases because it's not like a invasive occupation.
Right.
Well, I mean, I guess it was at first.
I'm not trying to compare the two.
But I think there's a difference between trying to deal with like a sticky situation that has a sticky history and versus like because of America's actions and Afghanistan's actions in the past, that's led to like things don't exist in a bubble. So in some cases, it sounds to me that the conclusion you guys are coming to is that in some cases, yeah, this is absolutely inappropriate. This is a misuse of the American military. And in this case, you're basically bullying people. And in this case,
murdering them.
You're right. And in this case, that murdering or occupation is acceptable because the reason that America is there is justified.
Yeah, I mean the reason we're there is because Afghanistan has immense mineral wealth, and three reasons: that, and to enrich the military-industrial complex. How much does it cost to make a bomb to drop? And I forgot what the third reason was.
Probably that Sharia law thing that Steve mentioned.
But yeah, my main point was that we need to we need to talk about soldiers and joining the military like it's a moral issue. Like you're morally accountable if you volunteer to take part in this. And I'll let the next caller come on.
Yeah. Well, I thank you, Smitty.
That's some
agree
interesting.
Or disagree. I love your opinion, and I always will,
Smitty
and you know that.
I
respect for your opinion. You know that, my friend.
It's okay, Nikki. We're trying to do one at a time.
Can stay because
I
have
there we go.
Something to rebuttal on
Yes. This. Hi. Well, first of all, I'll just say it's caller Nikki. What's up? How are you, Nikki?
I'm doing just great. I got my week off to move, so
wait, where are you moving?
Down the street.
You asking Nikki to dox yourself?
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be like. I say I live in California. That doesn't mean people can find me, although my address is public.
I'm still living in Kansas City. It's just literally a mile down the road.
Can I ask which side of Kansas City are you on?
Central still.
Okay. I have some family there somewhere. I have family in Kansas, Junction City, if you know where that's at. Milford.
Helios for 5 says the best way to create a terrorist is military action. Actions of war cannot stop terrorism. It's like extra vigorous sex every night to stop pregnancy.
Who knows? I got mixed feelings about it. It's like, I think there's going to be terrorist organizations regardless. And do I think that we've been effective? No. And do I think that we had a piss poor exit strategy for all this stuff? Yes. I think we need better political leaders, and I think we need better generals. What's so funny? Whenever we have good generals and good political leaders, they seem to get shit on, and they seem to they're the ones that kicked out, right? And then these other people that don't know what the hell they're doing seems to get
sounds like a systemic problem.
Yeah, it sounds like a systemic problem, doesn't it? I mean, look how many people Trump got rid of that were actually good and kept all the crap people, and he's like, I only hire good people. I'm like, really? That didn't age very well.
So Nikki, what do you got for us?
So kind of to go along with what Smitty was talking about, I agree with some of his points, but personally coming from a combat-oriented area in the Navy, even though I never was in combat. There's a lot of stuff that people who aren't in the military don't understand.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. It is different for people that have been in like us. Yes.
Especially when it comes to combat, because I was on a fast attack sub. We had the capability of launching Tomahawks like you would on a destroyer.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of the ones, as an FT, that would have been launching those. The government, our command system, would have gave us coordinates, and we were to carry out a strike package, which was such and such torpedo or Tomahawk, blah, 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 and we send it to those coordinates up to roughly about 1,000 miles away, depending on where we were at. We don't know what those targets are.
You're not supposed to know.
Until we hear it on the news when we get back from the port.
Yeah. I mean, you're not supposed to know. That's not the thing is you just have a coordinate.
So it sounds to me that a lot of the times the individual, excluding war crimes, so excluding people that are like, oh, I'm part of the military and I'm occupying this, which is letting me like rape and pillage. So excluding like basically just raping and pillaging a village or something like that, excluding those situations. When you're in combat, you're not the one making that moral call. You're just there to follow through with what whatever call is being made. The moral responsibility, you're saying, is on the people who are giving the instructions, and except for obviously extreme situations of like somebody acting on their own.
Exactly.
Or a platoon acting on its own.
Yeah. And you had did you have both conventional and nuclear Tomahawk?
No, no.
Okay,
and
so
I can't.
you can't say one or another, but yeah. So I mean, there are different warheads for it, but yeah. No, we didn't have nuclear on our ship. We had harpoon missiles and we had SM1s, SM2s, but neither were them nuclear tipped.
Yeah, for the most part, our ship never carried. I can confirm this. We never did carry nuclear tipped Tomahawks. We just carried the standard Tomahawk loadout. Mm-hmm. But we were qualified to at least carry all the way up to cluster bombs. Tomahawks, and it goes back to I can either confirm or deny the fact of we had the capability of launching nuclears.
Yeah,
but
even so, we didn't.
Even so, I mean, I had the top secret clearance to understand what we were doing, where we were going, but like I said, with the whole strike package, we didn't know exactly what our target was. It's some military facility. Well, are we sure it's a military facility, or are we sure it's a fake military facility that they've thrown civilians in and then bitch about it later on the news?
Or disguise it as a hospital or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But you're mostly were ground-based. Your Tomahawk were mostly for... See, we were anti-ship. More than anything, you. It sounds like you were more.
We had torpedoes. We had torpedoes for anti-ship.
We had a Mark. What kind of? They were Mark 14, I think, torpedoes, if I'm not mistaken. But they were
Mark 48.
40 could be Mark 40. Yeah, Mark 48. I think they were. Yeah, I don't. But they weren't nuclear tipped. And people don't know this, and she's a fire tech, so she's well aware of this. I'm not trying to explain to Nikki how this works, but for the people out there, torpedoes.
Mansplaining.
I'm going to mansplain. Torpedoes don't hit ships, believe it or not. They're not supposed to hit ships. Torpedoes are actually supposed to explode underneath the ship, so it produces an air bubble that breaks the ship, the spine of the ship. That's how they're supposed to work. Cool
Inkboy for 5 said the bloodiest guerrilla war was after militaristic occupation during World War II. So I support opinion against strong military action against those countries. So I think what it's coming down to is that when you're on a ship, when you're a bomber, when you're taking you're giving up your right to question and your right to make those moral decisions, and putting those, you're giving them up to somebody else. You're giving them up to the people who have the information that you don't have, and they're not going to give you. So how responsible are you when you put yourself in? So you're responsible for putting yourself in that situation, but how morally culpable are you after the fact, outside of just making that decision?
I don't think you're morally culpable. I mean, if you're doing things lawfully and you're obeying lawful orders, I don't think there's a moral culpability there. Now, if you're disobeying, or if you're performing an action that is unlawful and you know it's unlawful, that's a completely different thing, right? For example, I mean, there's very
The military
specific
does have
procedures.
rules.
Yeah, there's very specific
nowadays.
reasons for launching certain things, and if you don't meet those guidelines, the people in charge that are the lower echelon, they have the right to say, I'm not doing this because it is, you don't meet the conditions that have been established for the lawful discharging of weapons, right? So they have a lot of control over that. Just like I had no control over that, but I had control of what's called reactive compartment entry and control point. So if there's a spill or something like that, you have a control point person that sits there and he controls who comes in and out of the area, because you have to log everything that goes in and out because you don't want radiation dispersed throughout the ship. You don't want there to be contamination. So there's one person in charge of that, and they have a log of everything that goes in and out. That person can determine who can go in and out, period. I don't care if you're an admiral. You don't get in unless the control point person says you can go in. You have to. They're God at that point. So if somebody orders you, to let somebody in, you don't have to. You say no, you can say no. You are that person in charge at that point. You can, and you don't have to abide by an unlawful order.
I think there's also like a difference between what happens on a ship and what happens on a plane and what happens on a sub versus what happens on the ground, right? Yeah. There's a big difference when you're a sniper versus when you're like foot in the town, right? So if you're in a city and your commanding officer says kill that person, or you're a platoon and your commanding officer says you need to go and occupy that town by whatever means necessary, and so you kill anybody opposing you entering that town. Now you don't know the repercussions or why necessarily, because that's not up to you. You've given this right to know and make that decision away. So you may not be able to say, hey, no, it's wrong for us to go in and just arbitrarily kill these people.
But you have a duty.
But you don't have that information.
Right.
So you're basically told, hey, you need to go do this, and you have to accept that the reason we're telling you to do this is a morally acceptable reason to be doing this. So you're kind of in a position where I have to assume that the reason my officer is telling me this is because those people are a danger, or because those people are a threat of some kind.
Yeah.
And then you've also got the situation of like, no, these people are shooting at me, I'm going to shoot back at them because you.
If you know it's against the rules of engagement, and you have a commanding officer ordering you to fire on civilians, you have a duty not to follow through with that. You have an obligation not to obey that order.
So your commanding officer has to be following X rules.
Yes. I also want to throw a caveat in this to that. During World War II, there were civilians that were essentially similar to suicide bombers.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and all the other extremist organizations that we've been fighting the last, almost 2 decades now. They have no qualms of sending children and women out there, or normal civilians, with bombs strapped to their chest, or loading them up and say, hey, these are the bad guys, shoot them.
I would say there's a privilege that comes with being non-combat versus in combat. If you're in combat and somebody comes, there's a difference between like you're a police officer in a mall and somebody comes running up to you versus you're a soldier in a foreign country that has people regularly trying to attack you and somebody comes running up to you, right? There's a distinct difference in context. The cop might have, the police officer may have the privilege to stop and assess the situation and find out what the person wants, because it's not very likely that they have a bomb strapped to their chest. But the soldier in the foreign country in a hostile territory doesn't have the privilege to stop and assess the situation to be like, well, does this person really have a bomb strapped to them? Or did somebody else strap a bomb to them and they don't really want to do this? Are they being forced because of this, that, and the other thing? Or are they forced because I'm here? These are not things that you have time nor the privilege to actually assess in that moment. These are only things you could assess after the fact, or if that's even possible, or before you've even entered. Right. So I think that the issue with holding soldiers accountable for killing people is you have to take into account A, hostile territory, and B, you'd have to take into account the only real moral decision they're making is to give up their decision making when it comes to morals. That, like, it's not up to them to make those decisions. So if you wanted to change the cultural environment, you wanted to hold soldiers more accountable, it wouldn't be the individual soldiers. I think you would need to be holding to a different standard and a more moral or less moral standard. It would be the generals, and it would be the people that are making these decisions, maybe the politicians in that case. But you've also got a situation where you're at war, though. Now, if you want to discuss whether or not you should be at war, that's not up to the soldiers. They didn't choose to go to that war. They chose to join the military, but it's not like the soldiers took a vote and said, yeah, let's go here. I don't think that's quite how that works. So...
yeah, that's pretty much, and I agree with that, is because the reason why I jumped in on this, because there was a time not that long ago, within the last 12 months, I was part of a transgender Facebook group. And because I was white, ex-military, and for some strange reason, apparently a transphobe, I got called a war criminal. I've never fired a shot. Not in anger, anyway. Now, granted, I was trained to fire shots, tomahawks and torpedoes, but I never did. And everyone that in this group was saying, oh, the U.S. is guilty of so many horrendous war crimes. Really? You want to take a bet on some other countries that in the past have created way more atrocities than we have? In recent history? And I got kicked. After that, I got kicked from the group.
Yeah, I think that making the comparison is fine. You can say that your military is better than this military. That doesn't mean that your military can't necessarily do or be better. Exactly. And I don't think that's what anybody's saying. Nobody's defending any particular war or any particular general or any particular decision. We're talking about whether or not, like, the chat right now is, I don't know why they're getting to gaslighting, but they're asking is, what is considered hostile territory? You've decided it's hostile. What decides whether or not something is hostile territory is if you're being attacked. Now, are you attacked because you're there and they don't want you to be there? Maybe, but they're still attacking you and you still have the right to defend yourself. And the thing is you're being sent there by someone else, right? So you've got a very, I feel like we're talking about something that is a very complicated system that people are trying to oversimplify. There's a lot more to how the military works and how people decide where, who is going, when, and why, and what they're taking with them. Exactly. Than I think that the average person really knows about, and that includes me. I don't really know very much about how the military actually functions, particularly once you're in it. And I also know that different countries have different things. But if you go somewhere and somebody shoots at you, it's hostile. Now, did they become hostile because they wouldn't be hostile unless you weren't there? Yeah, that's kind of what hostilities are. That's what combat is. And so if you are saying that, oh, well, no, they shouldn't be there in the first place, and there's a political reason why they're there that was decided by somebody else, and it's their fault for joining in the army in the first place, do you not want to have a standing army? Because now we're getting the chat saying, hey, no, listen, you decided to join the army, which means you decided to take part in that war in that place in particular. No, that's not a decision a soldier gets to make. You join the army for whatever reason, whether it be to protect and serve your country. Even if you join for a particular war, like say you wanted to go to Afghanistan and you're like, listen, I believe in this and I want to go to Afghanistan and I want to go and fight in this war. That does not mean you're going there.
Yeah, and a lot of people join before they, we're not always at war, so people join for their own
military.
Reasons,
right, and then there are people who join the military who during peacetime or during this time or during that time, right? And so those are situations where these people did not choose to be in. There are people that were part of the military before America went to Afghanistan. Those people didn't join the military to go to Afghanistan. There are people joining the military now that aren't choosing to go to a very specific place to do a very specific thing. Now, I'm sure there are shitty soldiers out there that are just shitty people. I don't doubt that. But then you judge them on those merits.
We got a super sticker.
Yeah, what do we get?
Melissa, Boomer of the Night, $3, thumbs up. Thank you, Melissa. I'm glad I had to fix something for her, and I just asked her to check it. I guess she just checked it that way. So thank you, Melissa, for.
So Helios makes a good point. In my opinion, if you join the army during active war, you're choosing to go to war. I didn't join the military, even though I originally wanted to, because I didn't agree with the war. Sure, but when you're always at war, like America seems to be, that doesn't mean that it's going to be the same war that you joined for, or in the same place that you joined for, or that a new war is not going to start, right?
To be fair, on America's point, and I don't care who gets offended by this, but the United States is a war-thriving economy. If we are not at war, our economy tanks heavily.
Yeah, we do better during wartime. That's always been normative.
Yeah,
right?
That's not a good thing. That's an
It's
economic.
not a good thing, but I'm also going to throw this on there too. Well, I'm also going to throw this on there too, real quick, Tash. Is my personal opinion, the UN fucking sucks.
Oh yeah, we need to get out of the UN. I totally agree with you there. The UN's ridiculous. They're impotent.
It's not just us pulling out of the UN, Steve. Yeah. It's the UN cannot do their job. They do not have the resources.
Of course, I couldn't agree with you more on that.
This is the why. This is kind of the why, and this is me playing a little bit of devil's advocate on this one. The U.S. is the world's police force right now because that's what the UN was supposed to be, but the UN sucks. Period. That's why the UN always backs the United States when we're going to do this. Now, there's a few times where they say, no, we can't back you on this because blah, 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 blah. But generally,
and it stops nothing.
The UN doesn't do any action unless the United States supports it because, guess what? We're the only remaining true superpower.
China.
Your guys' military is absurd.
Well, here's what I mean by true superpower.
I consider them a true superpower.
We are an economic superpower and a military superpower. China right now is only an economic superpower.
They got some military.
They do not have a blue water navy like we do.
They don't have it. No, our navy is probably one of the best.
And they don't have the Air Force capabilities we have.
And I will say this: I do think in modern warfare, naval is probably the most effective right now.
I don't think that it makes sense to hold people to account of murder in a combat zone. I don't think that makes sense.
No,
now, if you want to talk about the moral implications of entering a combat zone, you can't talk about just the individual anymore. You now have to talk about the history, the economic status, the political situation at the time. Talking about the individual is not going to get you what you want. If you want the military to be held to a higher moral standard as to what wars they enter and where they go, that's a political thing. You need to deal with the policies and who you have in charge of doing what and what negotiations and what foreign policy there is. If you do it from a soldier's perspective, you're just going to end up, you're not going to end up with the result that I think you want, I think is what I'm saying. It doesn't mean you can't and you can have that discussion. I just don't think it's not going to go to where it's not going to get the result that you're looking for, which is, less dead people, I assume.
I want to address someone in the chat. Segmentation fault. I completely fucking agree. Our defense budget should be cut in half, at least a half.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I think our probably defense budget is a little overinflated. Sure,
I mean, it should be, but I wouldn't say. Yes, I would say incorporate into the space program, but there's a lot of more issues in the United States.
I think
in the space program.
The allocation for the defense budget is odd. But again, do I think there's certain things that we could probably cut back on? Absolutely. There's things I think need to be more funded. Yeah, probably. But
so Riley makes a point that I do want to touch on. They're saying it's the little job description. There's an overwhelming precedent to expect combat duty in some militaries going into it. Depends on what part of the military you join, doesn't it? Not everybody who joins the military is expecting to go into a war zone on foot.
I had no expectations of even being in a war zone. I was over there 3 times off the coast.
Right. Some people do. Some people want that. So that there are some individuals, and now you can question those individuals' morals, but you have to talk to them as individuals. If you want to treat them as individuals, then you need to treat them as like if you want to judge them as individuals, as soldiers, then you need to talk to those individuals and see what was going on and investigate those individual things. If you broad paint a brush and say anybody in the military who joins the military is culpable for anybody that they may have a hand in killing, well, your entire military is murderers, and I mean, they're a military. So it sounds like what you want is no military.
Well,
maybe I'm just not understanding.
Well, here's another thing too. Having no military would be fucking awesome, but that is not the world we live in.
Right. No, I agree with you.
Period. And you cannot just blame the United States for this.
Well, if all countries got along, we wouldn't need one. Would we?
Exactly. If everyone got along, there would be no need for a military. Now, there might be something like small for whatever, other reasons there might be, but there would not be what we have today.
Think about where that money could go if we all did get along, right?
I think that there's I do think like that maybe I would agree with Riley and Smitty in an idealistic sense, but the world doesn't work that way. Now you can pick and choose what wars may or may not be more morally acceptable or more justified to you for whatever reason. But the thing is that human beings are human beings. We're not, especially as groups, going to just, hold hands and sing Kumbaya. It's just not going to happen. So is it acceptable to do what? Right? So and Riley says, well, don't join the military then. You have a false dichotomy between there being no military or some individual joining the military that they could choose not to. They're different questions. Well, no, the thing is that those things go together. You either, if you're going to say that anybody in the military has moral culpability in these cases, what do you do with that? Do they go to jail? Do they get treated? Do they follow civilian law? So if you shoot somebody when you're part of the military, do you go to jail? Like, maybe I'm not understanding what you guys are saying, because what would be the point of saying, hey, listen, no, we need to treat veterans as if they've been murdering civilians all willy-nilly with no whatever. Like, what are you saying?
No
then,
benefit to that whatsoever. Yeah.
Well, even if you think there is, what do you think so what is so let's take, for example, let's say you take the most altruistic view possible, and the military, the American military, or a platoon of soldiers is sent in to build a school into this area. They're sent in to build a school. They have some weaponry to defend themselves, so they're carrying weapons, but they're not using them, and they're there to dig holes, build a well, and build a school. That's what they're there for. And they get shot at. Now that school, that local area, asked them to be there. They said, hey, listen, we need a school here. Can you help us? Military goes there and say, hey, listen, here, we're going to help you build a school. And then they get bombed or they get shot at. What do they do? What are they supposed to do in that situation? Because if the situation is that, oh, well, then no, they shouldn't fire back. They shouldn't have been there in the first place. Oh, so those people should have been left to suffer, even though they asked for assistance. Or you say, oh, well, they're allowed to defend themselves, but they're not allowed to kill anybody. And if they do kill anybody, what happens?
Yeah, and I
What-
think
so-
we have a
so
right to
what are
defend
you-
and to kill when it's appropriate. Some people just don't like
I-
that. Some people just don't want they don't want to recognize the fact that sometimes you have to use deadly force. There's just no way around that.
I don't understand
You
where
know-
you could where do you possibly go when you want to say that anybody who joins the military is a murderer?
Yeah, it's-
Okay, so what do you do with that? Even if you accept that that is the case, now what?
yeah.
I got an idea. I got an idea on this one. And
Yeah.
this is, 'cause I'm thinking this is some of these people are coming from a pacifist background.
Possibly. Yeah, it sounds like
So
pacifism.
here's my thing on pacifism. Great, you're patting yourself on the back for doing absolutely nothing when you could have done something to save someone.
Yeah, I mean, look, I understand why there's some pacifist out there, but I mean, for anybody who thinks the world's going to sit down and sing "Kumbaya" and then deadly force is never going to have to be used in any time in any place, it's an idealistic situation that just has no bearing on reality.
Now Riley's saying maybe we should be looking at what soldiers are being tasked to do on curtain duty. But that's what I said before, and you guys didn't accept that. I said, well, like talking about the individual soldiers and holding them accountable in that way does what? And it's not going to have the effect you want. The effect that you want is to if we are going to go to war, then you need you need rules, and you need to be in a war that's like morally acceptable. Then the people you need to be talking to and about aren't the individual soldiers. The people you need to be talking to and about are recruiters, the economy, and politicians, because those are the three things that control that thing, right? So I don't understand. I don't understand why, like, I maybe I'm not understanding what they're saying. Smitty earlier said that if you join the military for a paper job, and you're choosing to join for mass murder, I said that the military is currently a force for mass murder, and people are morally culpable for volunteering to support that. And then they had said also another time something about if you join a non-combat part of the military, you're supporting an invasive civilian massacring force.
Yeah, I don't
so you're
agree with any of
accusing the military of murder.
Yeah,
that's what you're doing.
It's
And you're saying
nonsensical.
you're saying
It
that
makes no sense.
everybody that joins the military or supports them
Right.
in any way, does that include your taxes?
Yeah. Yeah. So
And-
so here's my caveat to that. If that's the case, stop paying taxes and see how far that gets you.
Yeah, and
I
what
don't
about the what about the
understand
people
what they're
that want
trying to
education?
say.
Yeah, I mean, I guarantee.
I mean, I just don't get it.
Most people that think that way have never been in the military, so they don't really get it. But you know, it's a non-realistic viewpoint of thing. People join the military for different reasons. A lot of it is because they'll get an education, they get a paycheck, they get a skill. It has nothing
exactly
to do with
why I
condoning murder.
joined.
Yeah, I mean, it has nothing to do with condoning murder. I think it's because again, murder is a legal term. It's hyperbolic to use it inappropriately when you're not talking about legalities. I don't see any reason to use that term unless you're appealing to emotion, which is a fallacy, right? I mean, you're just trying to play on people's emotions when there's actually a very specific terminology used for murder, right? So I mean, literally it's a fallacy, right? So
They've
I'm
missed
sorry,
the
I'm laughing at
point.
Smitty, I'm not directing this at you, by the way, hon. I'm directing this as an in general thing.
well, he'll have to call in next time, and we'll have to have part two.
Smitty, I literally just read what you
Verbatim
were saying.
what you said, yeah. that was
Verbatim. I don't think you can accuse me of not listening. But I don't like taxes don't only fund the military. Duh.
But
Who
some of
said
it does,
they did?
right? But some of it does.
But some of it does. So what do? Do you have to talk to the
Military's not a
politicians?
gang. That's again hyperinflated language. The military is clearly not a gang. That's a completely
Okay,
different
here's-
thing.
okay, wait.
This is the thing that's confusing me. This is the thing that's confusing me. If you want your military to behave better or differently or in a way that is not the way they're behaving now, and then you also choose to not accept when I say these are your solutions to get that to change, and still continue to say, like, no, if you are a support role in the military, if you're related to the military, then you're culpable for mass murder of civilians morally, then you're not accepting what might be the solution to what you're viewing as a problem and what views to change. So what are you arguing for anymore? I don't understand. Segmentation Fault for 10 said the morality of military action is a touchy subject. When I was in Lebanon, a camp was fired upon by a mortar purposefully set on the roof of a school of cause an action to be taken.
Yeah, they'll use civilian target things like schools and hospitals because there's less chance of retaliation, right? So that's why they do that.
And so Smitty's saying that the military is a gang, and it's like, no,
the military's not a gang. That's
the military is
argumentium ad emotium.
I don't understand. So what do we do? Are you going to treat everybody who's a part of the military in any way, shape, or form as if they are part of a gang when they are on American soil? What purpose does that serve, and why? Even if you want to view them that way, and we accept that, what is the point of what's your goal here? And what is the how do you judge someone in combat in those cases? Because it seems to me that you're trying to judge somebody for joining. Like, so if you know about the military and you know you're going to have to kill people, you're morally culpable for making the choice to join, knowing that you're going to have to kill somebody, assuming you're going into a combat
I don't think
area.
There's no way to justify calling the military a gang. There's no way to justify that, I don't think.
Maybe, but I'm just saying that, like, if you're I'm saying, like, if you're going to go that argumentation, so if you're going to accept that, where does that take you? Because I don't think that takes you to where you think it does.
All right, well, we got one last caller. We got to wrap this up. We are at our 2-hour mark, so Nikki, we're going to get to this last caller. They got about we'll give them a few minutes because they called in.
I'll go ahead.
You can stick around if you want.
All right, that's fine.
All right. Who's on the line?
Well, great. I just wanted to call you guys and talk about stonks for like an hour or two.
Yay! It's Mr. Serious. Please come and save us from our.
Here, actually, I will.
Come and save us from ourselves.
And Mr. Serious. That we'll have like a 2-minute thing before we wrap up.
I wanted to call and mention that you guys are having like the same issue now that I called and talked about a few shows ago.
Yeah, well, yeah, it comes around. It comes around, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean it's very interesting. Like it was one of the reasons I said I don't even want to like have these discussions because it's so like hyperbolic. Yeah, it's like
we love
what
Smitty.
do you do?
But here's the thing: we thrive on that, right? We want the people to have those discussions. Here's the thing: we're all grown adults, and we can actually have these types of discussions and not get all butthurt about it. So, I mean, Smitty's my mod, for God's sake. I expect him to have different positions.
I am just fucking confused.
Yeah, I don't understand his reasoning either, and I think that probably requires part two.
The only thing I can think is that there are situations where the military has been utilized to bully other nations, and that's you might be able to convince me of that in some cases. Sure, yeah, okay. But, and if you wanted to have that conversation and then convolute it with the conversation about whether or not an individual, what level does an individual's moral culpability come into play of being internally or externally consistent, right?
Well, but I can refute that on its face. So, but I'll do that after I say that in these situations, I have a really hard time of not accidentally insulting people. And that's why I don't like to be in these situations, because I probably would have said something accidentally mean, and I don't mean to do that.
Be mean to Cheshire?
No, I'd be mean to Smitty. I'd be like, oh my God, like, I don't mean to be, but oh my God.
Everybody's mean to Smitty. Smitty expects that.
I don't mean to be though, but it's like I'm trying to explain my point, but it's like I come off as insulting. Yeah. I don't mean to be though. It's like I every time it happens. I don't ever mean to be though. But
we got. Let me get a quick super chat. Then you can say what you got to say, and then we've got to go. Got to scummer 5 pounds. There's a reason that there were only 24 defendants at Nuremberg, and the entire Germany military wasn't put on trial. Well, they were the ones that we caught, but yeah, sure. But
the thing is that there seems to be like this idea that maybe I'm misunderstanding, but it seems to be like that there's this idea that there aren't rules in the military. You just go and you just kill people, and it's like, but it's these are decisions that are being made, and the reason why people are, it's not that the individuals in the army are being excused for committing crime, because the things that they're doing aren't considered crime. So if you decide that they are crime, you need to talk about why. If you just say, well, somebody died or their military's not there for a good reason, that's not on the soldier. Well, they joined though. Okay, but they're not the one that made the decision to go and kill somebody, even or kill somebody that ought not to be killed, because they can't see the future. They may have accepted the responsibility of, I might have to shoot somebody. They didn't pick who they went and shot, and whether or not it was okay to pick and choose who to shoot, except for if their superior officer has told them to do something that is against military rules. So there's already rules set in place.
And there are soldiers, there are people in this military who aren't like,
my brain can't
go like, yay, go kill other people in other countries. It's like, that's not their motivation here. Like, that they're not all about, like, they want to protect the people that they're there with because they get to know them, they like them, they don't want them to die, and they want that in response from their wanting to protect their brethren. Like, that's what they want. Yeah. They want to go home too.
Yeah, a lot of them do humanitarian aid. That's a lot of military is humanitarian stuff.
But there are whole towns where they're like super duper poor, where they grew up poor, they got nothing, they're never going to have nothing, so they're coming out of high school with nothing. They got their high school sweetheart, they're having their first baby, they have nowhere to go, there's nowhere to work, there's nothing. So they got like one option. They got because they in that same town, not for any coincidence, but for very purposely, there are like 40 recruiters. And there's a very good reason why there's 40 recruiters, because there's literally nothing there, no options. They know that they're going to get every entire able-bodied boy in that town to go and join the military, because they literally have nothing and they have no options. So if they want to put food on the table for their boy or their little kid or their girl and their wife, they have one option. So they're going to go to that other country, not because they're part of a gang and not because they want to kill people, but because they want to put food on the table for their wife and their kid. And
Prune makes a... Oh, sorry.
And then that refutes the entire argument Smitty was trying to put forth.
Dr. Kroon says, talking about the moral and ethics of military is tantamount to saying people are capable of violence, and so defense/offense are an eventuality of the modern human condition. Yes. So what do you do? If you, I think I agree with Riley when they say, I don't want there to be militaries that go to other places generally. That would be great. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. If that were a realistic possibility, but I don't think that is, because we're people and we suck. So like I was saying earlier with Smitty and Riley being idealistic. Yeah, ideally you wouldn't have to have a military. You wouldn't have to go anywhere, and you would only go for tourism and for positive things. But that's just not the way things are. And I don't think they ever could be that way. Because we're people and we suck.
Well, people suck, and that's kind of where we're going to leave it at, because I think we all agree upon that, right? People suck. So anyways, thanks, Nikki, for calling, Mysterious for calling, and the other calls we had tonight. Yeah, this was lively. Wasn't exactly the topic I thought we were going to be doing the week, but hey, you know what? That's the way it goes, right? So
apparently, not starving and your family not starving isn't a good reason to join the military. I don't know what to say about that, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, people join for different reasons.
If you want to change the economic status, if you don't think like people should be starving, like people shouldn't have to join the military, and America's economy shouldn't be based around the military, I agree with you. That would be great. So change the political structure. You need to change your political structure and your economics before you can claim that people are wrong for joining the military, or saying it's a bad reason to join the military for economic reasons, for an individual at least. So if you want that to change for those individuals, you need to change the economic structure of America, and that's a different conversation. And good luck.
Give them a second option, please.
You got anything coming up, Josh, so I can wrap this up? And
Oh, more non sequitur stuff tomorrow at 2:30 Eastern my time over on my channel.
More deep dive stuff. All right, so we'll leave you with this. I would ask when we're filing today soon. We're just putting the final touches on some of the stuff. It'll be entered. Let's see, what is it? 1 o'clock my time. I would imagine it being much longer. It could be in between now and then. I would say next 2 hours. It could be in the next 2 minutes too. All is done. All of it's ready to go. We're just waiting for it to be filed. So we've got the affidavit. We have Exhibit A and Exhibit B of all the stuff we're asking for that I went over the other day. We are down to less than 8 days. We're down to about mathematically about 7 days because it's in the morning. So
got about a week.
Got about a week, people. A week. So I hope it goes by quick because it is like, man, a long time coming, to say the least. So anyways, thanks for all your calls. We will see you next Monday.
Thank you for calling.
Night.
Bye.
Bye.